Okay, welcome everyone for today's reading of Analects, and we will continue from last week, book 18. And then last week we finished up to book 18, chapter 6. And then our goal today is to finish books 18 to chapter 11, and then go to at least, well, I should not say at least, go to the chapter 1 of book 19. So let's start from book 18, chapter 7. So our format, we read, you can choose your version of the translation and read out loud. And then after that, Among is going to read our translation, and then we can discuss on the specific chapter. So let's start. Okay, chapter 7. Okay, anyone want to read your own translation? And please raise your hand. I will assume Kwang will read Dr. Eno, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Kwang.
Okay, so translation by Robert Eno, 18.7. Zulu fell behind. He encountered an old man with a staff, using his staff to carry a basket. Zulu asked him, "Have you seen my master?" The old man said, "A man whose limbs have never moved in labor, who can't tell one grain from another. Who is your master?" Then he planted his staff in the ground and began weeding. Zukong bowed and stood in place. The old man had Zulu stop with him overnight. He killed a chicken and made a millet congee with it, and he fed Zulu, introducing his two sons to him afterwards. The next day, Zulu cut up and reported on this. The master said, "He is a recluse," and he had Zulu take him back to see the old man. When they reached the place, the man has gone. Zulu said, "It is unrighteous not to serve. The codes that govern the relation of old and young may not be discarded. How can the proper relation of ruler and minister be discarded? They want to purify their persons, but they disrupt the basic relationships among people. The service of a Chunzi is the enactment of right, that the Tao does not prevail. This we already know."
Thank you, Kwang. Anyone want to read other version of translation? Okay, so let me share the translation work by Among and me. Okay, so
Excellent.
how many see? You can see it.
Book 18, Chapter 7. Zulu fell behind. He encountered an old man carrying a staff with a bamboo basket. Zulu asked, "Have you seen my teacher?" The old man said, "Your four limbs have not toiled. You cannot distinguish among the 5 grains. How do I know who your teacher is?" He stood his staff and began to weed. Zulu deferentially stood and waited. He stopped Zulu from traveling and let him stay one night. He killed the chicken, prepared a meal with millet, and introduced his 2 sons the next day. Zulu left and reported to Confucius. The master said, "He is a recluse," and asked Zulu back to see him. When he arrived, the old man had left. Zulu said to his 2 sons, "It is not dutiful not to serve in the government. The critical relation between the old and the young cannot be abandoned. How can the righteous duty between the Lord and the ministers be abandoned? This is to keep oneself clean, but to disturb the principal relationship. For a junzi to serve the government is to fulfill his duty. The Tao cannot prevail. He has known it already.
Thank you, Amam. This chapter, I think this one is very important chapter, in my opinion. If we go back, if you were here last week, you know we read 3 chapters. First, book chapter 5, talking about the Bohemian from the state of Chu, which is in the south. Chapter 6, we talk about Confucius and the Zilu met 2 guys. One we call it the tall guy, one is well-built guy. Okay, so Confucius got lost. Okay, asked for direction, and they say, "Yeah, Confucius, how can he get lost?" Right. So these kind of people are all related to Taoist people, so-called Taoist people, or you want to say they are recruits. Okay, they escape from the political world. So here is another one, which is very famous, right? And here, even not talking about in the South, but we can see probably in the South, because the chapter 5, talking about the state of Chu, that's in the South. Chapter 6, okay, last week we talked about because they are working on the wet land, right? That's the rice. So we can easily assume it's on the south. And the chapter 7 here, Zilu see an old man carry a staff. Old man carry a staff with bamboo basket. Okay, so bamboo is grown on the south. So it's all related to the south. And then Zilu got lost. Okay, this time Zilu got lost. Zilu is Confucius, one Confucius' old disciple. He only 9 years younger than Confucius. So when Confucius traveled, Zilu always stay aside with him as his, I would say, bodyguard. So he asked, "Did you see my master?" And the old man said, "Your 4 limbs has not told you that you cannot distinguish with 5 grands." So basically, you cannot, talking about you don't know agriculture, you don't know the food, you only know how to study. Okay, so that's it. How do I know who is your teacher? But actually, he knows. That's why he said that. He knows he is Confucius' disciple. Even he say, "Who is your teacher?" Okay, so but they have the mutual respect, right? Zilu doesn't treat him just a regular farmer. Okay, Zilu deferentially stood and wait. And this old man invite Zilu to his home, introduce to his son to Zilu, and bring the chicken. And we will consider here a chicken is luxury food, okay, to treat, entertain Zilu. So even they disagree in political philosophy, but they have the mutual respect. The second day, Zilu catch up Confucius and tell Confucius the story. Confucius, oh, he's a good recluse. So Confucius probably know who he is. We don't know. So they have the mutual respect. Ask Zilu to go back to see him. I don't know why, but Zilu go back to see him, and the old man has gone, and then then Zilu said, okay, that's Zilu said. In the translation, doesn't say it. Zilu talked to his 2 sons. Okay, I put the princess, Zilu said to his 2 sons. I know a lot of translation probably don't put that. So the reason I put that is sounds like Zilu is self-speaking, okay? But I will assume, because if to make the story, to complete the story, I will assume the old man has gone, and then the 2 sons is there. So Zilu to talk to these 2 sons. Okay, so that's my insert. I just want to bring up here. So it's not dutiful to serve. Okay, it is not dutiful. It is not dutiful not to serve. I think that's a very important message for Confucius in Confucianism, right? So if you are a learned person, you are a 君子, you need to serve the government. If you don't serve the government, you are disturbed. Okay, you abandon the principal relationship because you just want to keep yourself clean. Because in this world, a lot of turmoil, okay, he said, the Tao cannot prevail, right? You already know the Tao cannot prevail, but you still need to do your duty, okay? You cannot just want to keep the purity of yourself and avoid your duty. I think that's a Confucius message here. But through all this book, you will find out Confucius probably self-doubting, okay? Because in this chapter, sounds like Zilu said, you have to do it. But in the next chapter or previous chapter, Confucius kind of feel lost. So we can see in this book, book 18, is talking about Confucius kind of debating himself which direction he has to go, okay, to serve or not to serve. I think that's the message here. And based on, how do you think? That's your choice. About, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. And I'm going to try very hard not to cough in anyone's ears because I'm still recovering from that cold from a couple of weeks ago. This is an interesting chapter. We discussed last week, the previous chapters that we had talked about, how it wasn't too hard to see sort of the veiled address of the school of Fa, or the school that would derive from Sun Tzu's Art of War. Sun Tzu being Fa, Master Sun's method, art, structure of military. And then we lead into arguments against sort of the rising popular Taoism, which is starting to gain some traction because learned, capable, decent people, and I say people generically, but to keep it with the times, learned, capable men are fleeing. They are just giving up on the state, on whatever principality they're in, and they're concerned mostly for themselves, maybe their loved ones. Here we see a man and his two sons, but he abandons them after Zulu leaves, probably for some course of etiquette, knowing that Zulu is bound to return once he reports back to Confucius, and that he'll be chided for his lack of yi, dutifulness. We talked about that word back in book 17, verse 23. I'm looking at my notes. That's what I was flipping through. And how the term yi actually, if you just hear it and think of you're not doing your duty, it's very easy for a lot of us from a Western ear to sort of dismiss that, saying, I don't have a duty to do this. But when you remember that yi does mean duty, it also has a connotation of justice or righteous, loyal spirit. Then you can see where Zulu telling his sons that he is not being yi is a character attack on a much more deep level. This is sort of the culmination of Confucius anti-recluse, anti-Taoist later, and then even after that, anti-Buddhist, who would simply remove themselves from the affairs of the world. At least some would, I should say. And it was those some who would that that the Analects and Confucius followers took real issue with. Confucius never met a Buddhist in his life. He had no knowledge and nothing to say about them. But his students and their students would come to see anyone who would, go to the Sangha, shave their head, renounce family as absolutely anathema to them. And before them, the Taoists were sort of treading this territory in Chinese culture. So there's something anachronistic about this, because this story, while it feels like it may have happened, has so many trappings that make it a pithy argument towards those who would practice reclusion, that it's probably in the later editing that much of his accusation of being a recluse, of him being indicated as somebody capable, what in here gives us that indication? One thing, that overriding important moral lesson that Confucius has, that the old man tries to dismiss Zulu. Zulu stops and waits deferentially. And finally, the guy just says, "You're going to be here. I need to keep you from trying to travel at night where it's dangerous. I need to take you to my home. I need to feed you." These are qualities of ren that are the virtues of Confucius. This guy has demonstrated his ability and his capacity for some virtue. That's probably why he would send him back to conscript him, and or at least one indicator of it, and that he would flee, run away yet again to avoid that duty, is not so veiled a metaphor for how Confucians felt about those people in later Chinese times.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so let's open to discussion about this chapter. If you have something to say, or how do you feel this one, or any questions, please raise your hand. Kwang, please.
Okay, I think that the more philosophical or ethical dimension has been addressed by Aman. I want to maybe address a more down to earth dimension. I would say the upper trigram has been addressed. I will try to address a little bit the lower trigram. Um, in the Chinese society, the prince or the sovereign is a little bit the person that is the center of attention, then that would theoretically draw to him the energy and the capacities of the gentleman of the land. The attitude of this recluse is a little bit, let's say, in advance of 5 to a century to 1,000 years when it's concerned Buddhism. Because one of the debate in Buddhism, which happened around the 6th century AD, is that once you when you become a monk, and it's more about the upper class people who become monks, do you still owe uh, obedience to the emperor? And there has been a debate that once you become a monk, you don't have anything to do with the state and with the family. And that goes directly against the idea of the Chinese state that person having a certain talent or consciousness should always be ready to be of service to his state or to his sovereign. So the other thing I want to say too, that we are probably, as Jason said, in the southern state of Chu, and the southern state of Chu was humongous compared to the northern states. For example, even the rich states like Qi is relatively small compared to Chu. Mm-hmm. And that recluse is probably a member of the gentry, so he can afford to have a land that he would cultivate and to sustain himself, even if he didn't work for the government. So it is not a surprise that that phenomenon of the recluse is found in the southern state of Chu and not in one of the northern states through which Confucius would travel. Okay, for example, Cheng, Tsai, Qi. We have no incident that have been recorded concerning recluses in the northern states. I don't mean that there were no recluses or people who didn't want to participate to the government in the northern states. But it's not a surprise, but that the cases which have been mentioned in the Analects were all from southern states, because since there were much more land, it is much easier to just get away from political life and to live a simple life, because even for a simple life, you need to own a little bit, at least a small piece of land. So that's for the practical dimension of the vignette. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. I can just bring up a map here with when Kwang talking about the state of Chu. If you see this map, okay, on the bottom part, this big area, that's what we call Chu. Okay, that's the area. That's what we say. Even the most powerful state, Qi, on the top is only a fraction, a part of the size is this small. And the Confucius is here. That's the Lu, a tiny state. So Confucius, I don't know the historical correct or not, probably traveled to the south. So here we probably talking about the place on the Chu in this state. That's the place we are talking about. Yeah. So any other comment, question on this chapter? How do you think about this one? And then how do you feel about this story?
I
Go
want to
ahead.
agree. I want to agree with I don't remember if it was Ahmad or Jason who said that the old man knew that Zulu would bring Confucius back there, and that's why he disappeared. And I think, Confucius should have known that the old man would not be there also. There's a lot going on in terms of what people are thinking about what other people are thinking.
So you said the Confucius, no, the old man is not there. So that's why Confucius sent Zulu back.
Yeah, he went back to confirm that his intuition was right.
Okay. Yeah, just like I think that just like on the Yang Huo, the previous book, when Confucius tried to visit Yang Huo, he find the time when Yang Huo is not home, and then try to visit him. So
There is something I want to add because just said and knocked down my earbud. Sorry. There's something that Mark said that made me want to add a little bit. That yes, there's the etiquette kung fu at work here again, and we saw that way back when visitors would call upon Confucius, and he either had to not be around at the time, or he went to visit when he knew somebody wasn't. So that sort of proper etiquette is still prevalent. There is another element or layer here, and I think it's thinly veiled, but the sort of roles that people are undertaking here, the man who has land to provide for his family is akin to landed gentry. And Confucius, from somewhere afar, is sending his representative to conscript this man. This was a sort of social dynamic that would exist in that time frame in China and for centuries after, where it was the prerogative of the lord, whoever that may be, to conscript vassals to service of any kind. Usually that meant for the peasantry things like coolie labor. But in the case of somebody who was a landed gentry, they would be expected to provide, if not in service, then in kind. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that the 5 grains that he indicates is also thinly veiling that sort of conscription of above and beyond tax that a lord might demand of his landed gentry. So there are some other layers of social intimation in this chapter, but again, kind of anachronistically, because at the time, Confucius traveling in the south of the state of Chu, absolutely encountering people who had absconded from, the declining Zhou dynasty. That was probably something that was very common too. But all these other sort of details, those are probably added as flavor for putting forth the Confucian argument.
Thank you, Amam. Any other comment on this one? No? That's a story. So, Kwang, you want to say something or you want to read the next one?
It's for reading the next one.
Okay, so let's move on. Chapter 8. Okay, so that's Kwang, please.
Okay, so translation by Robert Eno, 18.8. Those who withdrew from service, Po Yi and Shu Qi, Yu Zhong, Yi Yi, and Zhu Jiang, Liu Xiahui, and Shao Nian. The master said, never compromising their aims, never subjecting their persons to disgrace. Would this not be Po Yi and Shu Qi? He characterized Liu Xiahui and Shao Nian thus. They compromised their aims and subjected their persons to disgrace. Speech always filling the role, conduct always matching the plan. This they fulfilled, but no more. Of Yu Zhong and Yi Yi, he said, they hid themselves away and relinquished public command. In one's person, abiding in purity, in choosing retirement, maintaining discretion. As for me, I differ from them all. I have no rule of what is permissible and what is not.
Thank you, Kwang. Anyone want to read? I think that would be a difficult read if you don't speak Chinese, I think. Let me bring up my screen. Just 1 minute.
You need me to share mine, Jason?
Okay, yeah. I found
Got
it. Yeah. Too many windows open, so.
I can relate.
Go
Book
ahead.
18, Chapter 8. Those who choose not to serve are Bo Yi, Shu Qi, Yu Zhang, Yi Yi, Zhu Zhang, Liu Xiahui, and Shao Lian. The master said, not lowering their aspirations nor bringing humiliation upon themselves, Wu Yi and Su Qi are like this. Mentioning Liu Xiahui and Shao Lian, he said, they lowered their inspiration and brought humiliation upon themselves, but their words are of the moral relationship, and their conduct is within moral consideration. Mentioning Yu Zhang and Yi Yi, he said they lived in reclusion and spoke no more, but they kept themselves pure, and their abandonment of the office of official titles was well thought out. I'm different from them. I have no preoccupation about what I should or should not do.
Thank you, Amam. This one is, I would say, difficult if you just read by yourself without interpretation, because they just pick 7 people's name, right? So he talked about Yimin. Okay, so if you go through every chapter in book 18, right? every subject, every chapter is talking about sort of recruits you escape from your job. Okay, so this one he called who choose not to serve. Okay, there's 7 people who choose not to serve. Okay, and the Confucius comment on them, they group them by 3 pairs. For some reason, Zhu Zhang, okay, Zhu Zhang, I think Confucius forget about him, so didn't talk about him. He talked about 7 people. Confucius comment about 6 people, 3 pairs, but forget about Zhu Zhang. We don't know why, and we don't know who he is. Okay, so first pair is Bo Yi, Su Qi, and I think we talked about this for many times through the entire 20 books of Confucius Analects. In chapter 1, right, we talk about, if we go to book 18, chapter 1, Confucius is talking about Wei Zi, Viscount Wei, Viscount Ji, and Bigan. These 3 people, okay, they die, they escape, and the 2 more people, they are in the same period of time. That's the Bo Yi and the Su Qi, who was I would say, the feudal lord. Okay, that's considered feudal lord, or the minister, chief minister of the Yin dynasty. But when the Yin dynasty was the government was overturned, they decide to abandon, okay, their job and escape to the mountain and refuse to eat the food, and they're starving to die. Okay, so that's Bo Yi Su Qi. That's why Confucius say they don't lower their inspiration and brought humiliation on themselves. Okay, but okay, they keep their word, and their conduct still keep their moral standards. Second pair, he talked about Liu Xiahui and Shao Lian. And Liu Xiahui we mentioned in I think in the chapter 2, right? Yeah, chapter 2. He had been fired 3 times, but he's still the same. So he is not escape his job. He just get fired because he's very straightforward. He follow the rule. So that's the second kind of people. We don't know who is Shao Lian, but we don't know who is Liu Xiahui. So, Yu Zhong, Yi Yi, okay. These 2 people, we don't know who is Yi Yi, but I know who is Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong is so-called Zhong Yong, okay, who is the great uncle of Qin Wen. Okay, let's put it this way, because the reason is the king, okay, has many sons. Usually, you will hand over the throne to the first son, but for some reason, I think it's because the physiognomy reason, right? Because he looks better, he looks become more like a promising kid. So the father decided to give the position, the throne, to the 3rd son. So the first 2 sons decide that's a difficult situation, because according to the tradition, the throne should give the first son. If the first son doesn't accept, they should give to the second son. Okay, so the situation become odd. So they decide to make the situation easier. So according to historical account, Zhong Yong, or these people, so-called this guy, okay, Yu Zhong, okay, so decide to cut his hair, tattoo his body, and escape to the south. So here, Confucius is talking about he escaped, okay, and then with well thought out the situation and decide to escape. Okay, and then he keep themselves pure. Okay, escape the position in order to keep the body clean, pure. Okay, So that's the story about these three pair of people. You can see they escape the government job with different reason. Okay, and Confucius didn't say anything, but sounds like Confucius appreciate what they are doing. And then finally, Confucius said, I'm different from them. I have no preconception about what I should or I should not do. So that's why here, Confucius in this crossroad, he is not very sure what he should do. He, in a way, in the previous chapter, through Zilu's mouth, is talking about it's dutiful for learned people or a 君子 to serve the government, even the government is not in the right order. Okay, it's your duty. But in another way, in this chapter, you can see Confucius is talking about I'm different. So I will interpret as Confucius is debating whether or not what's my next step. Okay. And then if Confucius decide not to serve for the government, and what's his reason? I think that's the big question to Confucius at this moment. Yeah. Aman, please.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, this is a rough ride for anyone who's not got footnotes to help them along the way, but there is a theme that you can kind of pick up. These are renunciants of government service who still retain a moral character. That's the overriding theme. They had the correct reason for doing this. And what was that correct reason? Because the state was lost. The Tao was lost. It was an exercise in futility to keep trying, and they were not going to lower themselves to keep trying, with maybe the exception of Lu Shahui and Xiao Lian, who they did continue to try, but continued to be fired and not really appreciated for it. So they wouldn't toe the new party line, as it were. So what he's saying here is sort of the positive argument for reclusion or renunciance, which is, okay, yes, there is occasion where this behavior is acceptable, but it's not for your own sake. It's not for your own well-being. It's not because you're doing what it benefits you or risks you the least amount of harm. It's because the game's up. It's over. There's no point in trying to go on. You are backing the loser in the mandate of heaven quarrel. It's been passed on. You've been saddled with the losing side. Now it's time to go ahead and just let it go. I do think that is kind of the theme here. And so, like Quan was saying before about sort of that argument that would happen centuries, millennia later about, whether or not these monks who renounced so much owed anything to their kingdom. Here you're saying, here's the case where you owe nothing to something new. You owe it to who you had ye towards, but you do not owe it towards the, usurper dynasty, as it were, especially. And his dilemma, he doesn't know, is the dynasty doesn't seem to be being usurped. It's not like somebody's rode in with a new army and they're the ones in the winning seat. It's just that the decay keeps rotting from the inside out. And there's no one necessarily that he can point to say that's that's who has the new mandate of heaven. And so that's why he says, I have no preconceived notions about what I should or should not do, because he can't see a difference between the lords he believes in, the state of Zhou and the Zhou dynasty, and anyone else that he cast about to look at and say, oh, obviously I should go down with the ship of the Zhou. because these guys are on the rise. There's no these guys. There's a bunch of other people all quarreling and all contributing to this sort of internal rot. That's the dilemma I think that Confucius was facing. And it's a pretty powerful reflection from somebody who is torn between is and ought.
Thank you, Amam. So that's open to discuss. I think this one is a difficult subject. Huang, you want to say something? Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yes. I think this, yeah, Amon is right, is very interesting, and it has to do with judgment, with good judgment, and not only with ambitions or with what I would call general epistemology. Okay, but when we speak of general epistemology, critical thinking and judgment are part of general epistemology. And I would like to remind everyone that there is a paragraph stating the general principle of this one, and this one gave a practical example. But the paragraph to which I'm referring to is 9.24, and it's not very long. I won't read it. The master said, exemplary sayings. Can one fail to follow them? Yet it is adapting them that is important. Lessons of obedience. Can one fail to approve them with pleasure? Yet it is applying them to fit that that is important. Those who approve without fitting and follow without adapting, I can do nothing with such people. So here, I think that there's a principle that we can call timeliness or good judgment. If it's appropriate or not to do something, we all know that in Confucianism, there is the principle that when the Tao prevails, you should serve, and when the Tao doesn't prevail, you should retire. But that's too general. And here, we have something more specific, okay, in the sense that why you should go to serve that person. Do you have some general intention of justice, of of course, that is always the case. But are you more capable of specific strategic thinking, given a very specific situation? And he gave some practical examples. And I would like to mention again that Confucius himself was absolutely not willing to serve Yang Ho because he was absolutely sure that the man is rotten to the core and there's nothing to do with him. But with his subordinate officer, Kong Shangfu Rao, he say, wow, he has been influenced by his superior, Yang Ho, but he seems to have a good nature, and I might probably be capable to influence him to do something interesting for the restoration of the Zhou dynasty, or at least, if not the Zhou dynasty, at least a new dynasty with the high principles of the Zhou. So here, this paragraph that we just read in book 18 and paragraph 9.24 is really the dialectics between transmitted wisdom, the epistemological development, but also your own capacity to have critical thinking and good judgment in very down-to-earth specific situations. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks. My question is actually really similar to Juan's comment, and in a way, he kind of answered my question, but I'm wondering if he wants to elaborate a little bit, or anybody else. It seems to me, so say you think all the rulers are helpless, but the warring state, the fact of the warring states, or hopeless, the fact of the warring states in and of itself is kind of a calamity. So to what degree can Confucianism like abandon like a deontological kind of viewpoint and go for like a more consequentialist or utilitarian viewpoint and say, okay, this guy is the worst, say the ruler of the state of Qin. I don't know if Qin Shi Huang was alive at this time or not, Qin Shi Huang, but whoever the ruler was, okay, sometimes he wasn't. But whoever you think is going to win, this guy is terrible, but at least if he wins, it's over, and we have one unified empire. Maybe his son or his grandson will be better, but at least if the empire is unified or China is unified, then things are better. So, to what degree can that line of reasoning fit inside of Confucianism, or can it not? So that's kind of my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should make it a historical correctly. Right now, it's not warring state yet. Okay, so
Okay.
the retain the old tradition still the goal of Confucius. So you can see it do start to from the warring state mentions. Okay, it start to debate. He's not talking about this kind of message, right? When you read the mentions start to serve. Okay, give advice to the powerful warlord. Okay, so it kind of, we can say, betting who is going to win, right? And to the later part of warring state, that would be the Xunzi, okay, another Confucian, or legalism, Han Feizi, okay. They are writing essay, okay, give to the powerful king who is, you know who he is, Qin Shi Huang. Okay, during this time. Okay, so I think that's the historical. And then Kwang, you have something to say, I believe.
Yeah, I was not going to add anything, but when Mark mentioned Qin Shi Huang, it makes me excited because I'm an apologist of the Qin Principality. Because after all, if the Qin Principality did not exist, China would not exist at all, okay? Because China is from Qin Principality precisely. So what, uh, and yes, Jason is right to mention some chronological watershed, okay? Confucius died in 479 BCE. Theoretically, the warring state started in 453 BCE. But I would say that at the time of Confucius, a kind of warring state mentality already appeared. Okay, so the general reasoning is not wrong. What I want to say once again, I want to come back to the hexagram, the upper trigram of the principles and the lower trigram of the practicality of the tools of power. And when I say that I'm an apologist of the Qin Principality, not only because that without them the Chinese people would not exist, but I think that the ruling class of that principality managed to achieve in flesh that very Confucianist dilemma, in the sense that, yes, you have to be rooted in infinite awareness and you have to be rooted in beauty, meaning justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom. But at the same time, you have to be down to earth and takes into account the reality of the terrain. And the ruling class, the Ying family, Y-I-N-G, that's their family name. And I would say that destiny gave them, or rather the King Xiao of Zhou, who conferred on their ancestor a domain, gave them the perfect family name, because Ying means to be victorious. So that Ying family, in my mind, gave the solution to that everlasting dilemma. Okay, yes, you have to be moral, but at the same time, don't be clumsy nerds. Okay, because Confucianism produced a lot of clumsy nerds, speaking about highfalutin principles, but absolutely incapable to act in reality. So I said many times that what we call in English legalism, which translates fajia, and fajia is more the art of the ruler, okay? That Ying family combined perfectly the capacity to stay in justice, beauty, valor, and wisdom, and the capacity to use practical tools for the art of the ruler. And they were capable to create industrial production of weapons. They were capable to give an organization to optimize the results of agriculture, And that happens from 361 BCE, the reign of Duke Xiao of Qin, who systematically improved the capacity of his state. And from 361 BCE to 221, the year of the creation of the empire by his descendant, Ying Zheng, 140 years passed. So I would say that legalism is the tool of Confucianism, and at the state level is a perfect historical illustration of the fact that yes, the gentleman has to always to abide in the upper trigram, beauty, goodness, truth, justice, valor, humanity, wisdom, but at the same time, he has to be capable to translate those cardinal virtues into practical actions. And because if he is not capable to translate those high principles into practical actions in order to maintain peace and order, he failed his duty, or he failed his endeavor. I prefer to say endeavor than duty. He failed his endeavor as a chunzi, as a gentleman. I stop here.
Okay, thank you, Kwang. Let's see, Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So just to add to the discussion, I mean, Confucius himself as a person was quite astute, you know, socially, politically. So he wasn't just a, you know, naive, you know, professor kind of person. He was involved socially and politically, you know. So his thinking was his way of pacifying the chaos around his time, and in comparison to many other approaches. And just to mention the second generation of Confucianism, the school of Confucianism, Mencius, who clarified one important concept that Confucius himself was not very clear on, at least not in the writings record survive. Mencius separated the welfare of community or state or collective entity from the person in charge of that community, the prince or the king. So that was a very important separation for Mencius, and then adopted by the mainstream Confucianism, even the other school of thought through the Chinese culture, which is that, you know, the first priority is the collective welfare of the state, the people, whatever. And if the king or emperor or prince serve that purpose, okay, we follow him. If not, then the king, the own welfare is secondary. So in that sense, that the focus of the various educated elites is slightly different since the Confucius his own time. But at the time of Confucius, the focus was still to find the good king in order to resolve the chaos.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, let's stay for the chapter 19. That's all about just for book 19. It's all about Confucius' disciple. Okay, so I agree with Nick, because what in this way, I tend to read Analects as a Confucius. Well, I tend to separate Confucius as a person, okay, and then Confucianism as a school, okay. It's, to me, has a big difference. Okay, so but anyway,
I did want to add one thing, because this is a great discussion, and I could go, this could derail us, but Mark's original question about when does Confucian's ideals compromise to serve an imperfect lord? right at the start of the Han Dynasty. The Gaozu of Han was hateful of Confucianism. He did not like Confucius. He didn't like, and he was hateful of the fajia, the legalism, as we've called it. So when he managed to raise his dynasty, he promised to abolish all the harsh Qin dynasty legalist punishments and make a entire empire that would operate under 10 laws. Very quickly found out that 10 laws was not enough to actually operate an empire. And so cast about and took almost wholesale everything the legalist had done, but had Liu Jia's writings as sort of the moral backbone to say, but we're doing it from a higher moral perspective than the legalist did. This isn't about ruthless pragmatism. This is about the fact that we are elevating ourselves into moral positions and our population into moral positions. And incidentally, if we have to put thumb screws to you, you really screwed up. Literally, not figuratively. And so I have to respectfully sort of take what Quan said and turn it mirror image and say that really Confucianism provided the moral veneer necessary to say we did away with legalism, but allow it to continue almost really unobstructed in a lot of ways for a long time. They did eventually coalesce into something greater than the sum of their parts. But Liu Jia's treatise, while it was probably very sincere, was Gaozong's like magic ticket for making legalism once again palatable in his new Han Empire.
Okay, thank you. Kwang, okay, so that's focus on the text instead of legalism, whatever. Okay, so
Yeah.
Kwang, you want to read the next one or you want to continue?
Very short comment.
Okay, please.
Because yes, that is true that sometimes the servant can overwhelm the master. The pretensions of Confucianism is to be the master, meaning that the endeavor of Confucianism is precisely to maintain the epistemological development of the gentleman at a high level and use practical tools of legalism as enforcer when needed. Because let's not forget that the ideal that as many as possible people would be guided by their inner mind in order to behave themselves correctly. But that's true that sadly the servant overwhelmed the master quite often in Chinese history. And legalism and Confucianism, in my mind, will always be the everlasting couple, with the hope that the master wouldn't be more often the top one rather than running after his servant in order to calm him down. That's a metaphor, of course.
Okay, so that's finish here for the legalism, because just like Kwang said, it's an everlasting debate or struggle politically and debate. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, look at we need to finish book 18 because book 18 the rest is very difficult part and for the people who first time here or not very familiar with the Analects book, it's not all like this, but at 19 will be more fun. Okay, so let's go through book 18. We have to go chapter by chapter. Okay, chapter 9, please.
Okay,
chapter?
so
Yeah.
translation by translation by Robert Eno, 18.9. Grand Music Master Chu fled to the state of Qi. The master of the second course, Gan, fled to the state of Chu. The master of the third course, Liao, fled to the state of Zai. The master of the fourth course, Cui, fled to the state of Qin. The drummer, Fang Shu, fled to the Yellow River Valley. The hand drum player, Wu, fled down the Han River Valley. The master's assistant, Yang, and the beater of the stone chimes, Xiang, fled out to sea.
Thank you, Kwang. Let's share the translation.
All right.
I think that's the reason Joe will not come in today because he doesn't want to read all this.
Oh, Book
Okay,
18.
give the task to Amang. So
Book 18, verse 9, chapter 9. The Grand Master Ji went to Qi. The second male music master, Gan, went to Chu. The third male music master went to Cai. The fourth male music master went to Qin. The drummer, Tan Shu, went across the Yellow River. The rattle player, Wu, went across the Han River. The music master associate, Yang, and the chime player, Xiang, fled out to sea.
thank you, Kwang. And this one, that's probably basically is describing the situation of the richer, Li, okay, collapse. And then, of course, a lot of people lost his job because people, the feudal lord doesn't practice. Okay, here is talking about the state of Lu, okay, because they still preserve the ancient ceremony rituals because first the Lord will eat 4 times a day. Each time come with music. So they have the grandmaster, the second meal music master, third meal music master, fourth meal music master, and also have another associate music master. So you see that's a full of ritual music here. But when the feudal lords stop practicing these rituals, they have to find other job. So they start talk about the great music master Zhi went to Qi, the second music master Gan went to Chu, and the third male music master went to Cai, and the fourth male music master went to Qin, and the drummer went to cross the Yellow River, and the rattle player, and they went to the Han River, and the music master associate Yang went to over the sea, not jump to the sea, basically free to the sea, go, I don't know, foreign country, someplace. So it's describing everybody gone, okay, all the great musician gone. For example, like you say Los Angeles stopped to have the harmony. So so something like this, if you stop the reacher and the musician all find their own job. So that's the only thing I want to say. And
Yeah, this is a great chapter of rats jumping ship, though I shouldn't actually say rats. It does require a little taking away the presentism when we think of, oh, so his accompaniment just fled, and that's a sign of the collapse of society. Remember or be reminded that throughout the Analects, Confucius has emphasized the importance of music as a pedagogical tool. Music ingrains itself in people's memories, and it is the vehicle by which you can transmit good or bad lessons, as it were. And so when you're looking at these figures who are masters of their craft and they are allowed to play for the Duke, they are people who are carrying with them the heart of this culture. And now they're fleeing. They are abandoning ship. That means there's no one left to actually do the necessary continuous work of transmitting valuable lessons. What's going to get transmitted instead? Valueless lessons, or lessons of topsy-turvy quality, music that may be licentious or whatever it may be. Think of this as akin to, if you need to think of it in present terms, scientists fleeing Germany at the eve of World War II. These are people who possessed rarefied, unique quality and talent, who see the writing on the wall, and they are getting out while the getting's good.
Thank you, Amam. And then, anybody want to discuss on this one? Kwang, you want to say something, please?
Yeah, just to say that the themes of the musicians of the court fleeing away from the state is a very traditional symbology of the fact the state has lost this mandate of heaven. Okay, so here there is a kind of undertone that with the fact that Confucius is not valued at his right level, implies that the state of Lu lost the mandate of heaven, because after all, Lu has been created by the son of the Duke of Zhou around 1040 BCE, so about 5 centuries before the time of Confucius. So that state, even if it's quite small and not very rich compared to the powerful state of Qi to the east, has a lot of prestige because of this cultural background or that cultural pedigree. And here, once again, there is a paradox, okay? Because what we read in the many paragraphs in book 18 and book 17 make us believe that the gentleman should always strive to improve the morality of the people of the Lord. And here, it seems to indicate to the opposite lesson. So I would say once again, I'm going back to paragraph 9.24. Exemplary exemplars are needed, principles are needed, but ultimately it's to you to take the decision for yourself. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Okay, so the state of Lu, beginning of state of Lu, that will be in the next chapter. Okay, that's for the next chapter. Mark, please.
I wonder if there's anything that we can infer from the information, which musician went to which principality. Could there be a kind of allegory there?
I don't think so, but at least I don't see this way. That's just the the master Zhi, okay, went to Qi's on the north. The second musician went to the south, and the Cai is another state. The Qin on the west, and across the river. I don't see any allegory or any metaphor that I just. Yeah. So Kwang, you have other thought?
And the only thing that I want to say that I see a contrast here, because you look at the master of the second course, the third course, and the fourth course, meaning the different phases of a princely meal. They would not be capable to flee to the sea because they would not find a job there. They would have to flee to another principality if they want to find a job. Concerning the musicians, it's easier for them because music is appreciated everywhere. You don't necessarily need a princely court to get a job, contrary to the master of the second, third, and etc.
They probably not necessarily find a job. They lost their job. They find an easy place to live, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say, Mark, if there's any allegory that I can kind of infer, it's that the master of the fourth meal fled to the state of Qin, which is the state of Qin Shi Huangdi. The fourth meal being the last meal of the day, the state of Qin being the last of the warring states to prevail. Maybe there is a veiled metaphor in there, and maybe there was much more meaning to it. centuries ago, but I think we have lost like all the context that made it clear.
Yeah, I want to push a little bit that metaphor. Qin at the time was considered a state that is almost half barbarian. So maybe the fourth meal is just good enough for them, and not the second or the third. So
Okay, so by this,
There's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy in terms of where they fled and their station.
yeah, absolutely.
okay, so let's move on. Chapter 10.
Okay, so translation by Professor Robert Eno, 18.10. The Duke of Zhou addressed the Duke of Lu, saying, the Junzi does not put aside his family. He does not allow his high ministers to become resentful so they are not used. He does not abandon old friends without great cause. He does not demand of any one man that he be skilled in all things.
Hey, let me. Okay, chapter 10. Among, please.
Book 18, chapter 10. Duke Zhou told his son, Duke Lu, a Junzi sovereign doesn't alienate his family. He doesn't make his high ministers complain about not being used. He doesn't abandon his old friends without great reason. He doesn't demand everything from one person.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so here is just what Kwang just mentioned, the state of Du. Okay, that's during the time, 500 years back, okay, from the previous chapter. It's talking about when the state of Du was founded, because Duke Zhou, okay, the first son, Duke Du, okay, he is sending his first son to become the first lord or duke of state of Lu. Okay, that's his father, Duke Zhou, tell him. A Junzi doesn't alienate his family. Okay, so here Junzi probably doesn't read as Junzi as Confucius teaching, probably read as a sovereign, okay, as a boss, okay, doesn't alienate his family, doesn't abandon his old friend. So it would be very different than what we will say legalism thinking or today's Western thinking about management, right? You should be impartial. You should respect the people's, you should give the full responsibility to your subordinate. At least that's what I learned when you work in a company. But here seems talking about Confucian's management. You never alienate his family. Don't abandon your old friend. So, don't demand everything from one person. In other way, you help each other. Okay. Don't so in a way extend family, friend, co-worker, they all together. I think that's the Confucius, not Confucius, Duke Zhou's message to his son. Okay, so that's the advice we keep here. Amang, please.
Yeah, this is a nice getting to the punctuation of this book. And this is pointing to all these values that I have been teaching my students start back when Duke Zhou told his son, Duke Lu, how to behave. They were all there. I'm just increasing this. So take the lessons, remove who's offering them or the polemic of Junzi, and just say a real good man doesn't alienate his family, doesn't make these subordinates complain that they're just being wasted, doesn't abandon people whose loyalty is earned without really good reason, and doesn't put all the weight on one person to be everything to them. These echo a lot of Confucius ethics. Doesn't alienate his family, shall. Doesn't make his ministers complain that they're not being used. That is yi, duty, act, action, just action. He doesn't abandon his friends without a great reason. That's that trustworthiness, and doesn't make all of his demands of one person. That is consideration and compassion. These are all lessons of Confucian virtues, just in being reframed and cast back to the ancient past to say, see, here's the fountainhead for what I have been teaching you.
Thank you, Amam. Any discussion on this one? We probably will go to 11, and we probably have to finish 11 and stop here. Look, guys, we have a very good turnout, and then right after turn 6, people just went to watch the debate. So we are using the Confucius, the most difficult chapter to compete with the most interesting political event here. So let's finish book chapter 11 and close book 18, so we can watch the debate. Okay, so next week, remember, come back on the chapter 19, book 19, which is more interesting. Let's finish up. Okay, Kwang, please read.
Well, I want to say before reading that
Okay, please. Yeah, you
all
always.
all is not lost because there are still people interested in the epistemological development, even against a kind of entertainment that is very questionable, meaning the debate. That being said, I will read chapter 18.11 from Professor Robert Eno translation. There were 8 gentlemen of the Zhou, Bo Da, Bo Kuo, Zhong Tu, Zhong Hu, Shu Ye, Shu Xia, Ji Sui, and Ji Wa.
Thank you, Kwang. Should I always have a problem to? Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. I cannot imagine Joe is here to read. So, Amam, please.
I don't like making fun of Joe for his pronunciation. The man is trying, and considering his lack of experience, but I digress. Book 18, chapter 11. There were 8 learned scholars in Zhou court: Buddha and Bu Kuo, Zhang Tu and Zhang He, Shu Ye and Shu Xia, Su Yi and Ji Hua.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so, well, big question would be, why have this chapter here talking about the 8 people in the Zhou court? I don't think anybody, well, I should not say anybody, at least I do some research here that cannot find out who is these guys. But from the name we know, it could be, it looks like it's 4 pair of twins. Okay, it's Bo Da Bo Zong, start with Bo, that's the first son. Zong Tu Zong Hu, okay, that's second son. Shu Ye Shu Xia, okay, Shu, that's the third son. And Ji Sui Ji Gua Ji Wa, okay, that's the fourth son. So there's 8 people. Look like it's 4 pair of twins, and others, I'm not sure what talking about. Another message could be talking about that's a Confucius general idea, the moral degeneration in the Zhou court. They have the great people, and right now we don't have the great people. Something on the book 8 talking about this. Used to have many talent people, but right now we don't have. Okay, so that's probably the message. Amang, please.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo what you were just saying, though not necessarily twins, but certainly siblings, people that share the same surname. indicates that from each of these families, they could produce two incredible scholars. That was what happened in the Zhou court, and now we can't get one decent one. Is kind of, to me, what feels like the unspoken subtext of this chapter.
Thank you, Amang. And Kwang, you have anything to say, or anyone have a question, please? Or comment?
A very short comment. I noticed that in all the books, you have the first one and the last one, often they are related. For this book, book 18, the first one was about three gentlemen of the Shang dynasty from 1600 BCE to 1046 BCE. And the last one is about a gentleman of the Zhou dynasty, 1046 BCE to 252 BCE. So this time is a comparison between the Shang and the Zhou dynasties.
That's interesting. Thank you. Comment? Okay, so we finished book 18, which is, especially today's chapter, is very difficult. That's I put this way. And I probably want to say probably very boring for a lot of people if you don't go to the history. Okay, and just I have to promise, book 19 is not like this. But there's no Confucius, no master said. It's all his disciples. And they have 5 disciples talking about. 子张, 子夏, 子游, 曾子, and 子贡. Okay, 5 disciples, because they are all young disciples. They are at least 30, 40 years younger than Confucius. So all this, so after Confucius died, all these young disciples become master. So they have their own disciples. So this one, book 19, is very, very interesting because that's all the voice without Confucius. And they try to recall, okay, and reteach what Confucius have taught them. Okay, so I think that's an interesting book for book 19. And then we are going to finish the entire 20 books of Confucius Analects. That's a great achievement. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think at this rate we might actually finish the Analects by the end of this month.
no? Well,
No? You think 19 will take longer?
probably 3 sections, I believe. 3 times, I believe. Yeah. And then we have the 20.
Oh, true.
Yeah, but 20 only have the 3 chapters. So, okay. Then we'll go back to 道德经.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Then finish our historical achievement. So thank you, everyone.
I think everyone who put us on, even if it was just in the background, I encourage you all, come next week. Hopefully there won't be as much distraction on in the national news. And yeah, if you have a copy of the Analects that you want to read from, please don't hesitate to bring it.
Okay, anyway, thank you, everyone. And I will close now. And then thank you, Kwang, thank you, Amang, and thank you, everyone here to participate. Yeah, instead of what political news. So.
See you.